welcome to Sprinkle Some Love with a Cause by Trisha Mullin. Today we have Mikayla Julien here, and she was diagnosed with IC disease, also known as interstititis. I kind of want her to talk about her journey a little bit and kind of start at before you realized what it was, but you knew something was wrong. What did you know? What did you realize first was wrong with your body at that time that identified something wasn't right?
Okay, well, I remember it was 2014. I was 19 years old, so I was really young. And there was one night where I literally did not sleep. Like, I was up the whole night, going to the bathroom, like feeling all sorts of bladder pressure, feeling like I wasn't emptying. And, every time I would try to go back to bed and go back to sleep, like it would hit me again, and I would just be back trying to pee, and it just wasn't working. And I remember feeling really scared and kind of panicking. I'm thinking, oh, like what's wrong with me? So I remember calling my mom, and she was like, well, I think you might have a UTI, and I'm like, well, maybe that's it. So she told me to go to the urgent care rather than sit there and call my primary and wait for an appointment that's like 3 days out or something. So I went to the urgent care. They, told me to pee in a cup, all that good stuff. Um, they didn't have one of the fast tests, so they told me that it would take a couple days for me to
Wait for the
decide if I had a
results.
UTI or not. So, but they went ahead and gave me antibiotics. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So they treated you for a UTI as if it was a UTI while waiting for lab to come back.
Right. So I got a call probably about 3 days later. I, was taking my antibiotics faithfully, and they said, well, you don't have a UTI. And I'm like, well, what do I have? And they're like, we don't know, but you don't have a UTI.
Right. I hate that answer. I got something, but you don't know what it is?
Right.
And you're the doctor? And you're the doctor though? Like, okay.
It was I think it was like a physician's assistant or something.
Well, no. I know, but like in my head, like at the time, I hate when I get that answer from doctors. But I came to get answers that if you don't have them, who does? That's kind of where you're at in life.
Right.
It leaves you in a sense of insecurity because and fear of what is it and what could it be and what is next then. That fear.
So right, and that's how I felt. So my next step was, okay, I now finished this round of antibiotics. I'm still having this trouble, and it was really affecting me in school because, I had, like, there were times when I would be at school and we have a test, and they don't like you to just leave. And so it was really hard for me to like sit in class the entire hour, an hour, 15 minutes without feeling like I had to go to the bathroom. And sometimes I would like be taking a test, and I can't take it anymore. And I know they're not just gonna let me leave and come back, so I'll just turn it in, and I not have answers answered.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times that I even it was just very insecure. Like there were times that I even like decided not to drink water, which is not good for you, because I thought that would help. And even still, I'm still burning.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, sorry, I got a little off track there.
Oh no, that's fine. I've been there, and even in school myself when I was growing up, I recall having to go to the bathroom a lot of times. And I remember this particular male teacher in my English class. Won't name names, but he know who he was, the English teacher. Okay? And he said, what's wrong with you? Why are you always going to the bathroom? Are you smoking marijuana in the bathroom? And at this time, I did not smoke marijuana. I did not. And he had asked me, are you smoking marijuana in the bathroom? I said, no, I'm going to the bathroom. He's like, nobody uses the bathroom that much. You went to the bathroom when you first came to class, and you went to the bathroom now. And he's like, I called the teacher from the hour before you, and you went to the bathroom in her class. I said, yeah. Okay. Like, and what?
And I, right.
Like,
And I
okay.
hated feeling like I had to explain things. Like,
Yeah.
I need to go.
And why are you monitoring my bathroom breaks? Like, okay. It got to the point where I had to go get a letter to verify the fact that I'm peeing, or I asked, do you want me the office? Do you want me to bring you a cup every time? I can pee in a cup for you. Would you like that every time? Show you I'm really peeing. Like,
right.
you know, I go 100 and something times a day, and I might go 3 times during this period. And if I drank anything in the last period, oh, I'm for sure going 3 times now. Like, maybe 5. What are you gonna do about it? Like, I can't do anything, you can't do anything. I got a note from the doctor, and now you have to let me go, and it's not at your discretion, because I had him tell me, like, proceeding a few days after, that I couldn't go to the bathroom, and I literally, you know, the potty dance where you're ready to hold your vagina and you're ready to sit there and just like squeeze the crap out of it and do the potty dance at the same time. And it was embarrassing, and I almost like started to cry in class because I felt horrible that I had to go to the bathroom, and he started making me gain like a complex, you know. So I know how that is fully. Like, high school is no joke for interstitial cystitis, especially when you're not diagnosed yet. Like, you don't know what it is,
right.
and they're like making you feel like you're changing your behavior. Well, I am. Something's wrong.
Well, by that time it was I was like first year college. Like I just
Oh, so
finished up
okay,
my
college at that
freshman year.
time. It's
Yeah.
it's still the same as, and it's
And
not the same as high school, but it's still school, the same concept as atmosphere type of environment, you know, educational place.
right. So so anyway, I was still having this pain, and I finally I got an appointment with my primary doctor, and I was like, well, you know, I'm having this trouble, and you know, I can't concentrate. I can't, you know, I'm up 3, 4, 5 times a night, and you know, he was like, well, you know, it's probably like a gynecological problem,
Mm-hmm.
or it's like a urologist problem. So he recommended that I go to both of those and see if that would help. I mean, at that time, I hadn't been to the gynecologist. I mean, I was single, never had a boyfriend, was still a virgin. I thought I didn't have to unless I was gonna go and you know have sex. So I just did it. And you know, I'd never been to a urologist, but I'm like, all right, fine, I'll make an appointment. Um, so, you know, my mom has been like such a great like resource for me during that time because she was the one that, you know, I mean, I at that point I was making my own appointments, but sometimes she would go with me and she would ask questions or she would make sure that I asked such and such question.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's very good to have a good
anyway,
resource and support like
yeah,
that, and someone who wants to double check and make sure that, you know, this is what's best for you.
right. So I went to the urologist, and you know, again, it's the whole spiel about I'm having such and such problem, and you know, they tested my urine, they tested me for diabetes, I had kidney scans, I had all sorts of things, and you know, it goes back into well, you know, your test looks good. I mean, everything looks good, but they did think that I probably had like overactive bladder.
Okay.
And yeah, so they gave me this medication and at, to trial for I want to say like a month and see if I was gonna get any better.
And how did that
And
work
they
for you?
gave me like it didn't do anything
Because it wasn't overactive bladder, it was IC.
because it wasn't overactive bladder, right?
So I assumed that
So
answer, but I wanted to ask anyways.
Right. It was pretty much like candy, and I'm like, what? Why isn't this working?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you know, the urologist gave me a list of kind of like the IC diet, but I know it wasn't the IC diet. It was like some list of like bladder irritants or something like that.
Yeah, stuff you remove just that irritates the bladder alone normally.
Right. And I remember looking at it, and I'm like, how can I do this? Because these like all my favorite foods are on this list. And she was like, oh, well, you really just have to worry more about drinks. But, yeah, so this is the list of foods, and here you go. So, there I was again, not much, I was diagnosed with something, and I kept thinking, um, I kept thinking, like, you know, like, why is this happening to me? And I kept thinking, well, this seems like an old lady disease, because how do I have this at 19 years old? And this is usually the issues people have when they're in like their 30s and 40s, and have kids and stuff like that. Like,
Right. I'm
how
just
does this
starting
make sense?
college. I'm young. I'm vibrant. I'm not sexually
Right,
active. I don't have any gynecological or urinology problems. So, like, where did this just magically come from?
right. So I decided to, make an appointment with a gynecologist. I'm like, that's my last thing. And so I went, and she was very nice, and I had pelvic exam, and my yearly. I didn't have a pap smear at that time because they said, well, you're not sexually active. There's really not much of a point. But I do remember that it was very uncomfortable for me, like very uncomfortable to the point where, like, I mean, I wouldn't say like I was screaming, but I was close. Um,
Yeah,
so, and
almost
I
like a
realize
kidney
now,
infection slash bladder infection with mixed with a UTI is kind of like the best way I can explain it.
right.
Mixed
So
with someone
I found
sitting
out,
on your like stomach bladder, like they're sitting on it while I have that
right,
infection.
right, right. So, she finally was the one that told me, have you ever heard of interstitial cystitis? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, well, I was put on this medication for overactive bladder, and I don't think it's working. And at that point, I think I was already experiencing some kind of side effect. Like, I think I was getting dry eyes or dry mouth or something like that. And she's like, well, it's not going to be overactive bladder because you're on this medication, you're on the highest dose, it's not doing anything for you. So I think that you have interstitial cystitis. And again, she basically told me to look at this list, the IC diet, and that was kind of how I got diagnosed because nothing else fit.
hmm Did you do the potassium thing in your bladder, like a bladder install, to also determine like your initial testing?
No, not initially.
Not initially, but that did come about.
Later on, when I was looking for, like, this was a couple years into my diagnosis when I realized that I would try to eliminate some of the stuff that the IC diet suggested, like coffee and stuff like that, and I was still having a lot of pain and still getting up. Um, they did mention bladder installations.
Okay, so
So
at this
I
point
did
in life,
get
how old would you say you are?
about like 2021.
Okay, so about a year to two later is after the
Yeah.
19. You're now
Mm-hmm.
facing the hump of the medications or treatments no longer working, and I'm kind of back at the initial square one of what's next.
Right.
So we're back on the mission, and they determined to do the
Uh-huh.
test. And then what happened?
Well, the bladder installations. So the I remember I had to get like this heparin solution, and like they had to order it from my pharmacy, and so for once a week for 6 weeks, I had to bring it in, and they would mix it with something, and they would put it in a catheter, and the whole procedure lasted probably about 10 minutes, and it was pretty uncomfortable. And I had to hold the solution in for as long as I could, and then pee it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed about the third week in, I started to feel a little better. Like I was able to like sleep through the night, or at least maybe wake up once instead of like 3, 4, 5 times a night.
And you were doing them once a week at
So
this point?
once a week for 6 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean that helped for like a few months. I don't know, like as soon as a few months was done, like it slowly, my symptoms slowly started coming again.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty disappointing. During that time, they were talking to me about like maybe going on Elmeron, and I remember not knowing what Elmeron was, and before I was going to commit to it, I'm like, well, give me a minute, let me like look stuff up so I can figure out like what the side effects are, because I'm one of those people that if a medication is gonna work or not gonna work, I'm just gonna have all the side effects. So I'm like, I'm very careful when starting new medications. And at that time, um, can I explain to the listeners a little bit about
Yeah.
Almiron?
Yeah, feel free.
So, well, Almiron, as far as I know, is like the only FDA approved drug for interstitial cystitis, and it's supposed to help the bladder lining. The thing with it is that it takes a really long time to work. Like you got to be taking it consistently for like 3 to 6 months for it to work, and it has a lot of side effects. And they're actually going through a lawsuit right now because some people are noticing that they're having vision loss from it.
Correct.
Um, right. So at that time, I didn't know about the lawsuits, if it was even going on at that time, because we're talking maybe 2015, 2016, somewhere in there,
Mm-hmm.
when I was looking it up. And the side effects that they knew about was still bad. I remember reading that, people exhibit hair loss and people exhibit all sorts of stuff, and I thought to myself, I'm not going to risk it.
Yeah, going bald for a bladder disease does not seem as
Right.
beneficial.
Right. Like, I was like, no, I'm not going to
That's
do
a
it.
side effect I don't want. Like
So we tried like minor medications, like there's like the like the common allergy medicines. Like I remember taking Claritin.
How is
A little bit.
Claritin going to help the bladder? That's new.
The common allergy medicines, they have like something in it called antihistamine, and it's supposed to help calm the bladder. I know some people with IC, they do say it helps them. It didn't help me, so I basically took Claritin and Zyrtec, which are more or less the same thing. They've got the same ingredients, and I mean nothing helped. Nothing helped. So so yeah, I mean it was a lot of trial and error throughout those years, and a lot of frustration that nothing was really working. And I mean, the bladder installation that did work, at one point, I ended up getting a UTI from it. So, you have that risk, and it was very hard.
Yeah, it definitely sounds hard because I mean, at that point in your life, you're very young, and to know that the medication that they are offering isn't what you want to take, and the options that they're giving you aren't even working as secondary options. What would you do next? So, I mean, what did come next?
Um, there were a couple of years after, um, after trialing all that, I kind of just tried to not focus on it as much as possible, which is kind of hard because
It's burning,
I'm
it
still
hurts, and we still have to urinate
right,
every day, multiple times a
right,
day. So it's not something we can just
uh,
forget about, but and we quit seeking
right,
treatment.
right. I just I was so exhausted. Nobody really had much of anything to offer me. If I would go and be like, oh, I'm having such and such issue, um, it was almost like there's nothing that can be done. So I felt very discouraged. I mean, and around that time, I got together with my ex. We were together from the time I was 20 to the time I was 24, and we were having some issues because we when we finally decided to have sex about 2 years in. Um, about 2 years into our relationship, I got the painful intercourse, which is one of the one of the common symptoms of interstitial cystitis.
Correct.
I remember going to my gynecologist again and like, okay, well now I'm having painful intercourse. What do I do? And they're like, well, you can try more lubricant, or you can try to relax, or I actually had one just tell me, it's like, well, most women have pain with sex. And I remember thinking to myself, isn't that a problem? Like, everyone's just in pain here.
It's a problem. You're right. And it's a problem that is still a current problem to this day for women that struggle with IC.
So, I mean... And
so you were diagnosed with the vulval, or however you say that one?
Oh, yeah, vulvodynia.
Yeah, you know how to say it, girl. I couldn't say that. I couldn't remember how to say it right now. I almost forget about that diagnosis. Until we talk about sex. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got that.
It was actually around the time, I think, that I was starting to have sex that I noticed that even when I wasn't having sex, I still had, like, this pressure in my vagina, like, in my vaginal opening.
From your pelvic floor.
Tampons, like,
you can feel that pressure from the pelvic floor, and now you're just realizing that what a pelvic floor probably is at this point in life, because you probably didn't even know you had one before that.
So, right.
Because who even needs to know what that is unless there's a problem with your pelvic floor? Then we realized that what it is. I remember the first time I heard pelvic floor, I was like, what's that? Like, what's wrong with it? Huh? Like, that's why I'm hurting when I have sex somehow, too? And that's the pressure that's I'm not having sex that's I'm feeling? That's different than the pain from the bladder? Like, so all three of these problems are still from my bladder?
Right. And I remember, also going, and I'm like, okay, well, now I'm having pain here. What does this mean? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, most interstitial cystitis patients have that too. And that's pretty much all they said. It's like every problem I come with, it's like, oh yeah, you're going to have that.
Yeah, but what am I going to do?
What have we done about it?
Right, I understand we all have it, okay. But we all don't want to have it, so what do we want to do to not have that? Like, was there an antidote?
Right.
Is there an ointment, a cream, a pill, a shot, a steroid, anything? Have we...
Like, give me anything. At this point.
Can you just take the vagina? Like, or the bladder? Like, can you just take it? Oh, no? Okay. So, what are we going to... No, you just have it. Okay, so that's not going to sit well with me. Just having it and dealing with it. No, that's why I'm here crying about you. It's not something I want to deal with. I want to help. So knowing that there wasn't help out there, really, for this option at that time, and lubricant is not the answer, and relaxant, honestly... Let's just talk about sex for a moment. Whenever we're ready to have sex and we're willing to have sex, we are relaxed. So to tell me to relax is not the antidote to the problem. If I was ready to relax, like, I am relaxed. So the answers they give you are nowhere near justifiable. Like, relaxant isn't the antidote. KY is not the antidote for this, or fixing the problem, because it's not hurting me on the outside of my vagina or on the muscle. It's literally just hurting in general. Even when there's not a penis inside of there, it's hurting. So the penis isn't the problem either. Sex isn't my problem. My problem is whatever is in there making me hurt.
So, can I talk a little bit about
anything? Go wherever you want to go.
This is your next question about how hard it was for me.
So how hard was it for you to deal with all of that and the realization of there isn't an answer, like, for you? There is no, like, dealing with it is the answer. So how did you deal with it?
I mean, I didn't deal with it well. I mean, I there are some people, like friends and stuff like that, like I would, my close friends knew that I had this bladder condition because, every time I would hang out with them, I'm like staking out a bathroom, or there are certain things that I wouldn't eat, or if I did eat, then, I'm going to be running to the bathroom. So they so they knew about that. But it was really kind of hard hanging out with friends, knowing that I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom the entire time. I can't really enjoy this time. And also, at work. I mean, I work in healthcare, and I do a lot of sanding. I do a lot of bending. I take part in emergencies, and it's always been my nightmare. And there have been moments where I like am doing something for a patient, and I feel like I'm about to wet my pants, and it's a terrible feeling to
Right, because you can't leave their
to
side.
feel
You have
that
a
effect.
job to do right now, so you can't just stop
Right.
and go to the bathroom. And you're actually not the patient now. You're the one caring for the patient. So you
Uh
can't
huh.
ask the patient, just hold on for a minute when they obviously need your
Right.
help. That's kind of why you're there, is to help the patient. So
Uh
yeah, that's
huh.
a conflict of interest that would build anxiety. So how did you deal with the anxiety from that?
I probably just didn't deal with it well. I mean, I tried to just tell people. So because I don't know if people were like talking about me or not. Sometimes I would say, oh well, I just drink a lot of water, or I think I have a UTI. That's why I'm going to the bathroom so much, because I didn't want people to think that I was lazy or I'm in the bathroom doing whatever. Like I really have a reason to be in there. It's not me trying to get out of work, you know.
Right.
So, but it was also really hard from like the sex aspect, because my ex, I think he tried to understand, but at the same time he made it a lot about him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there were times like when I was going through the bladder installations, like he accused me of, well, do you have some kind of STD that you're not telling me? Is that why you're having all these problems? And or he would say things like, well, what doesn't hurt you? Like everything we try to do, it hurts. Like, are you just not attracted to me? Are you do you just not
Yeah.
want to do this? Or
Yeah, they start
and
to
I'm like,
wonder, am I the
honestly,
problem? Are you not, like, did I do something to make you hurt? Or am I hurting? Like, how am I hurting you? I'm trying everything
yeah,
not to hurt you. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, you know?
yeah, uh-huh.
And then it's really hard
And
for them
he
to climax their self because they're so worried about hurting you that the actual
right.
event becomes more of a conversation than the event.
Right. I mean, and bless his heart, he would try and make sure that I got some pleasure out of it too. Like we figured out basically that intercourse was not how I was going to get pleasure, because it hurt so much. So I mean, he was really good at foreplay, so that helped. But it was hard sometimes, because I would be enjoying the foreplay and then I know what's coming, and then I would get nervous because it's going to hurt, or sometimes I would just see how much I could take, and
Right,
that
because you go
probably
from
didn't help
feeling
either,
good
because
to,
my muscles are really tight.
yeah, you go from feeling good to a pain. So, and then who wants to
Right,
leave from an orgasm to pain?
right. So it was definitely really hard, and I remember feeling like really deficient and like, well, what's wrong with me? And I felt like, I'm gonna get a little personal. I felt like, like I was failing in a way. Like everybody else can do this one thing and enjoy themselves and enjoy their partner, and I can't. And I was waiting sometimes for him to be like, okay, I'm done. Um, or I remember asking like, well, why are you still with me? Because we can't do this the way other people can.
Mm-hmm.
We did end up breaking up. Not just for that reason. I mean, it was a lot of things, but
But that had a step in
that
it.
was right. And if I could use his words, he did tell me. He did basically say, well, you know, not everybody can deal with a girl and her pussy issues, which really hurt my feelings. But
Right. I mean, these pussy issues and bladder issues aren't something that we asked for either. And we ourselves are dealing with it too. And I'm sure as a man, all men are not perfect, and I'm sure that as a man, he had some form of issues of his own that you were dealing
Right.
with of his. As a team or a couple, we deal with each other's issues. It's kind of not a one party deal. And when it becomes that, eventually it's inevitable when our lover isn't as understanding or doesn't try to help us cope with the situation or, and slander us in those manners. It pushes us into a different type of corner that, the only way to get out is to get them to agree and come with us and like support us, or we have to eventually leave that relationship because when we're not being properly supported, we can't, it brings a toll on our health, and we can never get over that hump of our health issues if we don't have the proper support mentally.
Mm-hmm. And, at that point, I did know a little bit more about IC. Um, and I did know that stress made my symptoms worse. And,
Definitely.
there were times when he would be like, "Am I stressing you out too much? Is that why you're in so much pain today?" Um, yeah, there's that. I mean, I do wish that I was more vocal, and of course, I knew less then than I do now. So, all my relationships going forward will probably be a little bit different. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like everything happens for a reason, and once we learn how to properly deal with things, the next relationship, we can apply those things that we learned, or those things that we wish we would have done, like being vocal. I know that firsthand. I've had multiple relationships while being diagnosed, and yeah, it's not easy. So, I learned with what I did with one guy, I might have been part of the problem. So with the next guy, I tried to change that, and that's all we can do is realize kind of what role we did play, whether it wasn't being vocal, whether it, was, sometimes I'm greedy. I rather just be the receiver on everything, and I am not a giver. I give too much in the world. I rather receive there. So I realized, yeah, that I had to probably change. So I kind of became a giver, or 50-50. Like we can share the gift,
Right.
So I learned how to cope, because sometimes our comfortability, our significant other is so worried about us that they're forgetting to even what pleasure or how to pleasure their self per se, not like masturbating with their self, but like it's hard for them to have an orgasm when they're having sex, and they're constantly worried if they're hurting you, because now they're not focused on the sex, they're focused on you and your pain.
Right.
So it's going to be longer. So quit focusing on me and my pain, and let's just do this and get you your little orgasm so we can keep it moving. So,
or I don't know if it's just I don't know if it's just an IC thing or me thing or whatever, but there are times when I felt so much pressure to orgasm because he would just kind of like stare at me.
Yes.
And he's just like trying and trying and trying and trying.
I'm a fake it, make it girl.
I'm like, I'll get there.
I'm a fake it. I'm a fake it, make it girl. Oh, I got there. You just missed it.
Well, I don't fake it.
I'll just fake it real quick sometimes. That was my younger days per se. Now that the relationship I'm in, we work with each other 50-50, and I don't have to fake anything. But in the other relationships, there was moments I found myself faking it, or okay, well, we came together. Okay, he's coming. Let's fake like I'm coming too. Okay, now we're both done. Moving on. So like, I kind of looked at it sometimes as like a chore because of the pain or the level of like an acting position, to where I had to knock off that persona, because that when I bring that sick girl to the bed, nothing gets accomplished, and it just becomes a debate or a fight, or it becomes a conversation instead of just pleasure. So I kind of like put my playgirl act on, and I try to knock it all off, and let's just go in there and get work. Well, let's focus on him, because when I'm focused on him, my attention isn't on me, and I realize my body tends to be more relaxed when I'm pleasing other people, that I can please myself now too. And because you don't know how to relax or focus. When someone tells you to relax, you're like, okay, what muscle do I do to do? Like, give me the directions. Is there a step? Like, how am I doing this wrong? I'm relaxed. Like, I'm ready. Like, I'll take some head right now. Like, okay, I'm relaxed. But so, I mean, how much more relaxed do you want me to be? So it's not relaxed. It's not. But I will say that my attention, when I tuned into where I distributed my attention, my body picked up its natural state and would kind of allow me to climax and would allow me to not focus on the pain at times. But then when I would actually relax and I wouldn't be focused on him or something else, oh, the pain was right there now. So if I kind of tricked my mind, like as I'm doing something for somebody else, then my mind kind of would let me. But when I'm doing it for me, my mind won't let me. So I don't really know if that's anybody else's predicament. Like, I really never had that kind of talk either with people, because you don't really find someone else you can talk about your sexual stuff with that actually understand. You know what I mean? Like, I would definitely say you're one of the first people I would probably say, because I don't even talk with most of my female friends about my sex life, because I don't choose to. And I also feel like if I tell my female friends certain things about sex, I don't want them to judge or to look at me as broken or to want my man instead, or so it's a topic we just don't talk about. But it's something that is just as hard as the initial fight, because being able to perform sex is something that every woman should be able to do. She is able to bear children most of the time, most women, and your body is designed to have sex. So how is it that my body's not designed? Like, my body's designed to pee and I can't pee. My body's designed to poop and I can't poop. My body's designed to orgasm and I can't orgasm. Okay, so what can my body wasn't designed then? So how do I work out this new design and this and make it a divine, beautiful life and let it grow into something beautiful, um, while dealing with it? So I don't really have the answer to those yet, other than distraction is key. Putting on my playgirl role, as I would say, and putting on my people pleaser, but in the bedroom become a bedroom pleaser. That kind of helped me the most. And I don't know if you've ever role played, but even role playing sometimes can be fun. Takes your mind off things.
Yeah, a little bit, but I don't know. Everything was so new to me in that relationship, because that was really my only. I mean, even still now, we've been broken up, almost 2 years. I mean, that's my only relationship. So all my discovery basically happened in that relationship. So.
Well, hopefully with the next, maybe you'll take some of that advice I just gave, or some of those hint factors.
I'll come back with an update.
Yeah, maybe you'll have some of your own Playgirl stories one day. One day. But, that distraction is hard. And when you're first learning your body and you've only had one sexual partner in life, and that partner hasn't always been the supportive guy in that role, I wouldn't expect you to be able, because with me, I wasn't able to experience that side until I had someone who was more supportive in the bedroom. Before, it was more or less like, oh, well, if you can't do it, I'll just cheat, or oops, I did cheat, hope you forgive me, type of thing.
That's awful.
So I wasn't in a stable relationship bedroom-wise. And I wasn't the only one in the bedroom with him. So that even made me more uncomfortable, because I felt like I was sharing my lover, to where now I know that my lover is my lover and he pleases only me and he tends to my needs as well as I try to tend to his. And it's hard for both of us at times, because like he has severe migraine. So there's times like I'm like, okay, well, I'm in the mood and he's just got a 3-hour long migraine. And now I've drank this beverage, and now my bladder's on 10 and he's ready, and I'm like, rain check right there. And but to be able to understand each other's issues, one day you'll get there. It takes time. But the bedroom, it took me, I got with him in my we've been together about 10 years now. I was like 22 or 23 years old when we got together. And he was just a friend with benefits because in the bedroom, I really felt the most comfortable with him. And we later developed it into a relationship, and then like an exclusive friend with benefit relationship. And then from there into a real relationship. But like he was still living where he was living. And then from a real relationship like that to like living together to where we are now. So at that point, like, it took time, but we started with the bedroom part and making sure that we had that down, because if I couldn't find someone who could understand my bedroom issues or relate to me in the bedroom, then I knew my next relationship wasn't without connections in the bedroom at times. Whether they're good connections or bad connections, they have to be good, because a bad connection in the bedroom, no matter how the relationship is, eventually it's going to take a toll, because we're humans. We're kind of made to fornicate, and if you can't fornicate, it just becomes harder on the relationship in general.
Right.
So
and I know
I've been there.
People say, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So, and I know people say, like, sex isn't everything, and it isn't, but at the same time, it's a very important part of a relationship. And I feel like a lot of times I've been lately like frequenting online support groups, and when somebody starts talking about their sex issues, that's the first thing people say is like, well, sex isn't everything. And I'm like, but I get that feeling. I get that feeling of, I don't want to be a nymphomaniac. I just want to have sex the way everybody else
But
does.
at your age, with your experience level, right now to you it feels like everything in a way, because you're at that peak in your life and your hormones are at that raging age as well. So to be able to have someone that can understand you in that manner does feel important. It's kind of like when you bake a pie and there's no crust. The pie just ain't the same. It's not everything. The crust isn't everything. Sometimes we don't even eat the crust. But we want it, and we want it there, and we want it there when we want it. So to be able to have somebody that you can connect with on that level is a larger piece of your pie. It's a big portion of the relationship. It's kind of like we could be doing great, and then all of a sudden it's sex time, and now it's fight time because we're not great at that. So who wants to have that fight every couple days or once a month or twice a month or whatever, twice a day or whatever your fornication levels are? You don't, that's just too often of fights over a 10-20 year span that eventually it breaks you. So it doesn't, it adds up to in the relationship. So it's not everything. But again, $1 isn't everything. But you know what? I stack all them dollars, I can eventually have everything. Okay?
Right.
So it adds up. It's like, the final straw, breaking the ice, the icebreaker, all those little terminologies. You get to that point in your relationship at some point to where that it's like, okay, well, if I would have just said yes that last time having sex, we wouldn't have broke up. No, girl, it wasn't even that last sex. You could have had sex with him 3 times that day. And the next time you said no. So you just kind of gotta let go of the was it I part of the problem part, because we know we're part of the problem. We have a disease. But here's the thing, all problems can be solved with the right team. And if I don't have the right team player in the bedroom, then getting to that orgasm is not going to happen. It's just not for the both of us. And it's something that it took me a long time to realize. I kind of felt like, oh, something's wrong with me, or it's this, or it's that. It's a team effort. And you're young, like that will pass. It will over time.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, but after all of that, you kind of realize I want to go to that, your pelvic floor treatments. What did you realize? How did that help you sexually or physically?
Well,
because I know that it takes a little bit of that pressure and pain off of you, which can allow you to be able to perform a little less painfully. But when there's the pelvic floor issues or damage, you can't. It's hard. It's just too hard.
So, it was actually just recently, within like the last couple of months, my mom, again, wonderful support system. She went to a doctor and the doctor mentioned to her, because my mom had a hysterectomy a couple years ago. and they were talking about pelvic floor physical therapy. She goes to like this functional medicine doctor. So I guess they're more open to things that some doctors aren't open to.
Yes.
And she's like, well, have any of your doctors ever talked to you about pelvic floor physical therapy? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to look this up, figure out what it is. And I'm like, oh, I mean, and they say they treat my condition. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this. Yeah. So I looked up somewhere in my area. They were able to get me an appointment right away. And my physical therapist, I mean, I'm forever grateful for her. I mean, she was very, very nice. And it was a lot of trying to get the pelvic floor to relax. So I did, since I have a lot of bladder issues, one of the things that we worked on was bladder retraining because most of us have like this chronic pressure and the urgency all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know in my mind, I just went to the bathroom. Chances are I really don't need to go. It's just a spasm. But you panic every time you feel that urgency. So we worked on if you feel that urgency, distract yourself. Wait 10 minutes. Like do something else.
Yep.
And if you do something else, you'll find that you can hold it longer. So with doing the bladder retraining, also she gave me this list of stretches to do every day. That helped, relax some of my muscles, and I was amazed at how well I did. In about like 2 or 3 weeks, I noticed that I was going to the bathroom less. I mean, I see a lot of times, at least for me, it kind of comes in stages. So there are times when my symptoms aren't as bad, or my symptoms are really bad, but it's always still there. So by the time I went to pelvic floor PT, I was probably maybe waking up once or twice a night. And so that got me down to 0 to 1 times a night. And so, that helped. And every week I would go and she would, add stretches, or I was doing well and I was like, okay.
So did you ever
do
the vaginal, I can't think because it's been like 15 years.
The internal massages?
Yeah, I kind of want to bring that up a little bit.
Okay.
For people who don't know and don't know anything about this disease, they're probably very lost at this point in your conversation. So if you could elaborate a little bit on what would happen in an average visit when you would come in for physical therapy for your pelvic floor, what would that even consist of? Like, what is the procedure?
Okay, so the first visit is usually pretty long. It's like an hour-ish long, and it's pretty much like a getting to know you assessment. So she did a whole bunch of strengthening exercises, and she asked me, how far can you lift this leg up, and push against my hand, and she saw how I walked, and she asked what do you do, and how do you bend, and do you have trouble sitting down, and do you have back pain, and do you have this, and do you have that, and at the end of the visit there was the internal massage, and so can I
Yes.
Go
into as many details. The more detailed, the better.
Okay, so where the therapist will insert their finger and feel around for the really tight muscles, and sometimes on the first visit it was pretty much not so much like a treatment. It was more of an exam. So she asked me to cough. And I'm guessing she asked me to do that to see if I leaked, and I don't. And let's see, sorry.
No, go ahead. So during the exam, her fingers are inserted inside of you, and she's kind of feeling along the edge of the vaginal walls to see where the tight muscles are as well. Because wherever those tight muscles are is what she's planning on massaging out during the next courses of her visits. but she's given her exam to identify where her particular tension is.
Right. So I remember that my first exam, she asked me to cough, and then she asked me to like pretend that I'm holding like trying to stop the flow of urine.
Yep, tighten,
I had
squeeze.
control. Right. And she felt like my inner thigh muscles. She felt my butt muscles. So it was a lot. And she would also, since I have like a lot of tightness in my hips and my legs. She would also like every visit, like we would do like stretches like in office, but she would always make sure to like massage my legs um, and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's how you get more relaxed. That's kind of the definition is to massage out those tight tension areas as if it was like a neck or a shoulder. But this is our vagina, not our neck or shoulder. So it's a little different and harder to massage out. And before this, I didn't even realize there was a tight spot that could be massaged out, you know?
Right.
So once you're kind of put into this like treatment plan, you're like, wait, what's going to happen? And this is supposed to help me how? So, and my boyfriend can't just finger me, isn't that kind of what you're doing? But they're two different things. For those of you who are listening,
do two different things. Like you can't even.
The goal is completely different, and it's kind of painful at first because I don't know if any of you have ever had a pap smear, but afterwards they like stick your hand in and they try to feel for your cervix and stuff. Imagine that, but then they're also pushing the pressure and trying to alleviate where that pain is. It's nowhere near like a penetration or in and out, inserting back and forth. It's not even like that. Where at first I was like so against it myself because I'm like, ain't nobody about to be fingering me and I'm paying her. I've got this. I can go home and do that myself, or my hubby will, and we'll get that right. And I'll just go ahead and finger myself and get that over with. What, twice a week, she said? Once a week? So I'm like, no, that's not it. And once you go through that experience, so if anybody's out there is like saying the same thing I just said, that they're not doing it, this girl right here is telling you it works. I'm telling you it works. That is one of the treatment plans that actually does work. Sadly, and it's not like a pill. There's no medication. You just got to bring your little vagina to that office and let them do their thing. And go back home.
What I learned too is to like trust the process. Like, you know, there was there was one thing that she said. It's like, oh well, have you considered meditation? And I had done meditation like, you know, years ago. Not like continually. Like I went to some kind of event and did it. And I'm like, well, what is meditation gonna do? But I'm like, you know what? I'm whatever she tells me to do, I'm gonna do because she's a professional and she's dealt with people like me, so I'm gonna do it. And meditation does help. I mean, it's really so much about like. I mean, I know for me, like I've been diagnosed with anxiety disorders and with an anxiety disorder and depression, and I feel like, especially us with pelvic pain, we carry all our anxiety down there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which adds more pressure and more pain because then we stress. Our anxiety is focused on the stress of our vagina. So it's different, like when you're stressing about the rent, or you're stressing about a school paper, or you're stressing about the next exam, because your mind is focused on that exam. Your energy and the manifestor thoughts are all focused on that. But when you're manifesting more into your own body, we tend to add whatever those thoughts are. So now we make ourselves sicker because of that. And then the anxiety and depression always takes a toll on the body. Now we force ourselves because we're not going to go into depression over a school test, but we will go into depression over the stress and anxiety of our female areas, or being able to perform, or did I pee in class, or I peed through my underwear when I coughed and like I didn't have a pad on today. I hope it didn't go through to my pants, and I hope nobody sees. And the bathroom's on the other side of the school. How am I going to make it there without leaking on the way every flipping step I take now? And I hope that nobody stops and tries to talk to me in the hallway and hold a conversation about God knows what that I don't care about right now. Because I just want to burst out of this classroom and run to that bathroom full throttle as if the school was on fire. Because my vagina is on fire. And I got to get this out. And I'm already coming out of my leg. And, you know, those issues alone just are very stressful. Like being at a workplace, forget to be in school, being at work, imagine, and you can't go home, you can't leave, or you're going to lose your job. It's not like you can just call your mom to come get you from, you know, you're not in school, you're at a job, you can't call your mom, you can't call no one, there's nothing. You know, I found myself when I got into a work age bringing like an extra bag of clothes, so if I did leak, or bringing extra pads, and I'm constantly raw and irritated because I have numerous of pads on. I broke down and had the surgeries and was like, I'm done peeing on myself. Help. Like, I'm done. I'm ready. You know, so you get to a point.
Like relaxing, like your pelvic floor, and I remember her always talking about like that. It's like, oh, the goal is to relax the pelvic floor. These exercises are supposed to relax the pelvic floor. And I was there for about 2 months, and then she left the practice, and I was going through a really busy time myself, and she was the only pelvic PT in that practice, so
there went your treatment.
Going again.
So there went your treatments, because if that office, if she left and she was the only doctor that provided that service, what does that do for all of her clients?
Well, I mean, she did. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like she just like left us like on our own. She did refer us each out. Like,
okay.
You know, the people that needed pelvic PT, she did refer us each to, you know, other pelvic PTs in the area. So, I really could have like scheduled with.
But the comfortability level that we have now, because you've just massaged my vagina for 6 weeks, like it is a little like I'm not really ready to just jump into another relationship like that quite yet. You know.
Right, but at that time I was finishing up my degree. I was really busy, and I was wondering if I even would have time to continually come once a week. So it kind of worked out, at least for me. It worked out pretty well.
Okay.
I mean, because like, you know, I'm still in it. I'm in the process of I've got a new job starting in July. I've got to take entrance exams and stuff like that. So I'm really busy trying to do that kind of thing. Okay. And, you know, of course she didn't know all that, but it really kind of just, you know, worked out in itself. And so, you know, once I get kind of settled into, like, I have, like, a certain schedule and everything like that, I'm going to start going again because that really helped me. So,
yes, and if you help yourself this time, like, a little more before the relationship, whatever relationship comes next, like, if you continue those pelvic floor therapies and treatments, your next relationship will be better.
I have a list of my stretches, and I'm doing them in the meantime. I'm not completely abandoning it because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to go back to where I started. So, I mean, and I have been doing pretty well. That it's, you know, I wasn't to the point where like I don't know how to describe it. Like I wasn't like to the point where like if I didn't go, then I would like wet my pants or something like that. Like I was getting to like the stable point.
Right, so you were able to fly on your own.
Yeah.
And, like, so it was perfect for you. It was perfect for the doctor. Everybody was kind of at that point where if you want to treat treatment in the future, here's where you can go. But right now, you just graduated from your 6-week course of the pelvic massages, so now you're at a point where you can go out and, you know, handle this on your own a little bit. So that makes sense, you know?
Well, it was more like, I don't know, maybe 8 or 12 weeks, something like that. It was
yes.
like March to end of
a couple
April,
months worth of treatments for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that helped. I mean, the thing is, you also, for our listeners, you also have to be really patient because there have been moments I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to be done now, right? No, your pelvis has been stressed like its whole life. It's going to take months to loosen it up, and it depends on if you've had other surgeries and stuff like that. So you you need to trust the process, and you need to definitely just be patient and, take the suggestions, and it will work if you put the work into it. So
Definitely, and she's right on that. That's true. I remember like when I went to like I was like 3 months deep, and I was like, yeah, this ain't working no more. And but then something still got me to go, and a couple weeks later, I was like, oh no, this is working. Yeah, this is working. It just wasn't working that day. I had like a really bad day on top of it, and I wasn't mentally
right.
ready, and I didn't care. I didn't want to go to the appointment. I didn't feel like I needed this anymore. So we have those good days and bad days, even with treatments. And if you're not ready to receive it or to accept it, and you're uncomfortable during the whole procedure itself too, you're only adding more stress. So no matter how much massaging she does or doesn't do, you're not going to get better if you're not accepted mentally, physically, and emotionally to it. And I know the very first couple treatments to me, I was so unacceptive, and I couldn't get comfortable for nothing. And she kind of had that talk with me about it and was like, if this is for you, you got to get with it. And if it's not, then you got to keep it pushing. But, getting with it, it was like, well, what do you mean? So I did a little research in like, what is she massaging? Because I think she's just fingering me at this point, and I'm not really sure what she's doing. So how can I get comfortable when I don't even like, I'm not attracted to you. I don't want you fingering me. It actually hurts when you're doing that. So after I did a little research, then I realized, like what you said, she's pushing pressure on certain wall areas and massaging out that tension. So once I got an understanding of what her goal was, me helping her accomplish her goal became easier because I could identify to her where I'm feeling the pressure now. Like now that I know what she's in there doing, it's kind of like as a virgin, if you don't really know what sex is and someone's trying to have sex with you, you just kind of lay there and hope that they're doing it right. But like, I was really a virgin at that. And then once I realized, oh no, this is what she's doing. Like, a couple months into it, I became a pro. Like, no, this is how you do it. Over here, touch here, do that. And like, I'm gonna tell you how to do your job today, lady, because you're
right.
Go further up, because that's where it hurts.
And she was very like, she very much, and I would get really nervous, like, unfortunately, and I think it's just in my mind. I'm so used to anything penetrative being painful, and I think that's where my mind was.
We associate it with pain. We do.
I would, right. So, like, she's not, I'm like, I know she's, it's uncomfortable, but I know she's not trying to hurt me, and still, like, my legs would shake the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be so embarrassed. I'm like, it's not you. It's just, I think that's what it is. But, you also do need to, like, she was very, very good at explaining, okay, I'm massaging this, and just like I
having someone to walk you through it while you're going through it. My doctor didn't do that at first, so I was like, even made it more uncomfortable. But when once I explained to her how uncomfortable I was, and I asked her for like printouts on what her actual goal in there was, then she started to explain. So my research was matching up what she's physically saying now. Like she's given the whole diaphragm as she's doing it, where before she would just go in and do her thing, and I'm wondering, like, what is her thing? Like, are we done yet? Did we get it?
Right. And the fact that it doesn't feel comfortable. Like I remember the first time we did it, and I was already in therapy for a couple weeks. After my initial exam, we didn't do any kind of internal work, and she kind of wanted to see how I was improving, or if there were any muscles, because there are some muscles that you can massage like outer all day, like they're better felt and like stretched out going internally.
Mm-hmm.
So like there was one muscle in particular, and if you guys go to pelvic PT, you'll probably hear it, called like an obturator internus, which is like way like deep in the like for us like in the vagina.
Yep.
And
like I said earlier, go a little deeper. Actually, that's where the pain was.
Right.
Yeah, that's the muscle
and,
she's
she
discussing.
She could massage my leg all day, and she would never reach it. So she would, that's really the only way to do it, and it affected like my hip pain, my back, my legs. So there was one point where like she had me like she was just like massaging it, it still wasn't releasing. So she actually had me like push against her hand, and it worked. So I mean that's another reason why you need to like really trust the process
And be comfortable with
you
the
know, if you're
physician.
uncomfortable, be comfortable, or you know tell your doctor like you know can you explain this to me, because you know I can't be out in my own little work because I gotta concentrate, I gotta help out too.
Yep.
You know,
And
she
if
can't
you're
start
not
yelling out
helping
for me.
out too, like you just said, then it won't work because you have to be a version of relaxed while receiving a procedure that you're probably not wanting at first. But it's kind of like with a new, sexual partner, we're not comfortable with them at first. But as we go on, we eventually learn to become comfortable with each other. And that's kind of how I felt with it too, where the first, even with the bladder installations, I wasn't comfortable at first. They hurt, they were irritating, I wasn't sure if they were helping. But then later, I would get out of bed and run up there and be so happy to get a bladder, my catheters twice a week, and be happy about it and look forward to it and be really mad or angry if I missed my appointment. So, doing these treatments, even though they are band-aid options, these are soothing band-aids and they're different than those. And if you do these things, it prolongs the real damage from coming forth because you are constantly fixing that boo-boo with small band-aids here and there. And they add up. Now, I don't feel that way about all Band-Aid procedures. I feel most Band-Aid procedures I am like kind of against. I'm like, why waste my time on? But with the bladder and how sensitive it is and how much muscles are involved with it and how those muscles travel to other spots, it's really hard because your vagina is so important to you that it's so hard for you not to want to do treatment for that, whether it's a Band-Aid option or not. Like, you're not gonna not have sex eventually, so you're gonna always want to use your vagina with your sexual partner, so
right. And it's just stuff like, you know, even though I currently am, not looking for anyone, not in a relationship or anything like that, I still want to do things like not just hurt just sitting down, or if I want to maybe be able to use a tampon, because I don't wear tampons. I mean, there have been times that I've tried and I can't even get it in.
Yeah, I can't wear tampons. I could never wear tampons my whole life, and I couldn't get it in even as a child, even after I was a virgin. And then when I did wear tampons, it was very uncomfortable. And I get what you're saying. Like, even though you're not sexually active right now, still getting your vagina fixed is a big issue because you don't want pain on a regular. You don't want that pressure. You don't want that heart just sitting there. Like, even in this interview, to be honest, I've been sitting here in pain in my vagina and in my bladder. And I had a podcast before this, and I drank about a half a pop that I normally wouldn't even drink, but it was the only one cold in the fridge, so I took it and I drank it. And I'm over here like, why did I do that?
I mean, I hope to at one point. I mean, I know as far as we know, there isn't a cure, but I hope to maybe get into some kind of remission. I mean, if I
So you will though, actually though, because what you're doing right now will help those Band-Aid issues, and eventually, right now it sounds like with your conditions and the state of things that, I mean, there was years where I went into remission and then there was years that came back. So, and it wasn't so much of remission because I still had IC and I still peed a lot. I still had issues, but those burning sensations, those pressure, the pelvic wall, like some of those issues came and went. The urination and the amount or the retention issues are like a permanent thing. So that kind of never changed. It only gets worse, I felt. And sometimes better, but never better to where we're revert. Like, it'll go up and down, but it'll never be better than when I started. You know what I mean by that? So, I mean, that'll give you something to look forward to, though, because, like, you won't have forever some of these symptoms and issues as long as you continue to seek treatments and options. There were a couple years in my life here and there where I was okay without treatments and options, and the last 3 or 4 years I've been okay without options because I've learned how to manage it, but without, I'm considering going back at this point because I'm at a point where it's kind of like, okay, I've been managing it for so long, and then I quit managing it and focused on like these other diseases or these other problems. So without those band-aid options, I reverted back to my original issues again. So as long as you stay up on replacing your band-aids and staying on those issues, per se, you will go into remission at times. And whenever you feel you're in remission, still do your stretches, your exercise, because I didn't do some of those things for years, and that's kind of what got me back at square one. Because, that phrase, if you don't use it, you lose it. Well, here, if you don't practice it, you go right back to it. And if you don't use the knowledge you have and practice it, then you're gonna go right back to it. You know what I mean? It kind of fits in a similar manner for people who are sick, because you have to use your techniques. That's what they're given to you for. And at first, it might be weird, because, like, to say that I'm sitting at home massaging my the outside or my thigh or this or that, or I'm trying to massage myself so it doesn't hurt, seems very weird, or like, you know what I mean to say. But if you can get that comfortable with you, yourself, and your body, then you're going to be on a good road to a good remission one day. Because if you can be comfortable enough to perform these things and do these things and identify the problems and say, hey, I need to do these, and realize that they're helping you, then there's no way that you won't get to that point, because you already are 10 steps ahead of the game. And as long as you stay, even though you're not doing things currently, you're doing things currently at home. So it's kind of like religion. Just because I don't go to church every day and pray in front of God to you doesn't mean me and God don't have conversations. It doesn't mean him and I don't pray. It doesn't mean that in private I'm not handling my business with Jesus and God. So, I definitely feel like the things that I handle in private with my medical conditions have saved me dramatically from other negative roads with those particular diseases. And the diseases that I did not baby, I didn't care about the Band-Aids. I said, I don't need that. Eventually, I was on the effect of, what do I got to do to fix this now that I didn't Band-Aid it? What do I do now? What's next? Because I need help. So those Band-Aids help. I'll give the medical field credit on that. But I am actually hoping to call out some doctors and get some doctors to try to evolve our treatment plans, try to elevate to the next level.
I mean, I'm perfectly fine. I'll be part of a case study if you want. Like,
I'm interested.
Somebody else.
You and I spoke about a book. You had read a couple books previously we spoke about. I wanted you to a little bit tell the audience a little bit about those books and who the authors are and where they could find those books, because when I was first diagnosed with these diseases, books weren't even wrote up. We were just discovering the name of the disease, let alone a person who could write a book on the disease. So the fact that there's even books out there to help this generation now, we've come very far in the last 10 years with the diagnosis, with the treatment plans, with identifying what works for people and what doesn't work. But now we're at a rut for the things that don't work for people. What's next? And what about education? Education is key in any disease. So these books will be very important for those of you who have no education on what you've been diagnosed with. Definitely. So go ahead and tell them.
Okay, so I did get two books. I'm in the process of reading one, and another one I haven't read yet, but I've read a couple excerpts. And the people I've spoken to, they really enjoy it. So the first one is called The Interstitial Cystitis Solution, and it's by Nicole and Jesse Cozine. They're actually both pelvic floor physical therapists, and they have a practice called Pelvic Sanity in California. They're very active on social media.
Yes, I just entered their support group, and after you invited me, I would like, if she's listening, I would love to have her on the show. I really think that the knowledge that she's done and the impact that she's had on the community and the medical field would be something I would adore having on here. I would adore letting her talk to us and inform us, or answering anybody's questions or whatever. Like, anything that she's down to do, I am ready. You hear that?
Right. and she has like lots of videos on YouTube, and she really goes in depth. Like if you are starting out pelvic floor physical therapy, like her YouTube channel, her TikTok, her Instagram, like I mean I think she's on every social media platform there is. Like she really goes like in depth, like what happens during an exam, and ways that you can do this stretch and how you can do it better. Like she really like the book is really helps, I think, people that are newly diagnosed as well as people who have had it a couple of years, and very up to date information makes it really easy. And I think that if you like read it and you just gain more knowledge, then that's that's great. Like you need to be like your own advocate. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
you go to your doctor.
You'll read things and see things that'll resonate with just you, and that's how you know that part of that book is kind of for you, because if it resonates with you and it's speaking to you, then get it checked out.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And the other book is called A Headache in the Pelvis, and it's on its 6th edition now, so it's been going on a long time, and it's more so like pelvic floor disorders in general. And it's written by a Dr. David Wise and Dr. Rodney Anderson, and I found both of these books on Amazon, but I I think you can order it on like Barnes and Noble or Target or Books a Million or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've looked at a couple of websites, and I think that since they're more specialty, you probably can't just go into the store and buy it. But if you can order it online, I mean, and they're like, $20-ish, so it's not too expensive.
Well, right.
I mean, a whole bunch of information.
The amount of things that we'll give to get help, I definitely think that's a reasonable price. And for under $50, you could have both of these books to your front door, and a lot of your questions may get answered, or at least you'll get like something that resonates with you that you could go to the doctor and ask about, and maybe it'll lead you into the better direction for your own treatment plan.
Right, and it's really sad that I think like a lot of stuff that I know about IC, I've had to kind of learn on my own. I mean, unfortunately, I think a lot of doctors, unless you go to a doctor like a pelvic floor physical therapist, like a urogynecologist, like a pelvic pain specialist, unless you go to those people that are specifically pelvic floor or pelvic pain related, they have like no idea barely about our condition.
Yes, and regular gynecologists don't know unless they have someone in their office that actually performs the work and duties that are affiliated.
And then when the treatments don't really work for you, they kind of just tell you what's in your head. Like that's their go-to. Like it's like hey, we might refer you out, or we might just tell you you're crazy. Like.
So if I'm crazy, I want the crazy pills. Where are they at? Oh, wait, you can't give them to me because I'm not that crazy. So then what is it?
Right.
Am I crazy or am I not crazy? Because I know I'm not crazy. And if I think that I'm not crazy and I am crazy, then give me the right meds to fix me if that's my problem. Because at this point, I'm willing to do whatever to fix me. So if I'm crazy and I need to realize I'm crazy and I need to adjust to the fact that I'm crazy and that's my diagnosis, what diagnosis of crazy am I? Am I bipolar? Am I manic? Am I what? I need this. And by the way, you're a vagina doctor. You can't diagnose me as crazy because that's not even your department. Like, I hate that answer. And when I tell them that, like that exact thing I say, I don't get the reaction that they were hoping for. They get really like, well, that's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying, I'm so crazy, I don't understand what it is you're saying then. So I really need to know, how crazy am I? Or are you the crazy one for telling me I'm crazy, that you can't even diagnose crazy? Because even if I was crazy or bipolar, you can't write me the script for that. So at this point, you should be telling me I need a referral if you truly psychologically, medically felt I was crazy. But you don't, but you have no other answer in your beautiful book of degrees with beautiful diagnoses that I don't fit. So that's why I'm crazy. Ugh, okay. I don't fit in your book.
Like, and the reason I'm depressed and anxious is because, I'm up 4 or 5 times a night. I can't sleep. And then, the reason I'm gaining weight is probably because I can't sleep. So I'm eating all day. And,
Oh, yes.
Instead of trying to, like, give me more, like, psychiatric medications, I mean, if you try and help me fix this underlying problem that I'm not just making up, I think most of us, like, we have lives. Like,
we can get back to them.
Office all day.
Like, right, I want to get back to my life. My kids need me. My life is waiting for me back wherever I just came from to come here. And even if crazy is the answer, I'm only crazy right now because you're making me crazy by not helping me.
Right.
Like,
I definitely would hope that, maybe eventually at one point, women's primary care doctors, if they're a gynecologist or not, I mean, at least have a little bit more education than they do now, so that we don't get constantly told that it's all in our mind and we just need to, like, drink wine or something.
I love that you brought that up. You want to know why? I've done a lot of thinking on that exact statement of the primary care provider physician issue. And I realize there's a couple dipsticks that are pretty easy to tell if you have a UTI, or a urinary tract infection, kidney infection, a bladder infection, because of the bacteria levels, correct? I think that every time it comes back, if they are not consecutively, like, if this isn't your norm for you and, like, this is your first time in the office, okay, we can assume it's actually a UTI. But if you're in here constantly complaining and we've given you UTI medicines in 30, 60, 90, 120 days, 200 days, 250 days, and you're still in here, and this has not been the first time that this has happened, this is kind of becoming a repetitive problem, primary care providers should be able to do that bladder test. They're able to do a pap smear on me. They're able to do a catheter on me. Why can't they just add that little potassium into the thing, see if it burns? And if it burns, when it goes into my bladder, then I have IC. If it doesn't, then I don't. It's a 2-second procedure instead of 3 years or 4 years or months of me crying before I come across someone who is willing to identify the problem. Not only that, but, okay, even ultrasounds. I've gone and had multiple ultrasounds, and they say, oh, she's still holding bladder retention. Retention is like a big sign without an underlying cause. These doctors, primary care providers, before they send us to a gynecologist, could actually be more equipped to send us to the right places. And a urologist as well is good and all, but certain urologists don't specialize in this because back when they got their degree, this wasn't thought of. They've never had the time to educate on it. So we are finding young urologists that know all about it, but older ones that are not, it's not in the book that they learned from. So they can't resonate with it and connect with it because, like, you're crazy. Don't you know? So I'm like, okay, so I'm crazy to this urologist. I'm not crazy to this urologist. This gynecologist, I'm crazy. This gynecologist, I'm not. This primary care provider says I'm a whack job. This primary care provider says I'm a sick job. This one says I'm too sick to help. This one says I'll help you, but I don't know how. What do you want to start with? So it's like there is no one doctor, or all my doctors say the one answer. They all have multiple answers, multiple doctors. The best advice here is to never give up on your body. And when you know something's not right. And the fact of the matter is, if someone is coming into your office repetitively explaining that something's not right with my body, and it's something in my vagina and I'm peeing issues, IC should automatically be like the first go-to, because it's an invisible disease at first. And if we should, and if bacteria is present, we should really be testing, because if we give people with that doesn't have that, kidney infection medication, UTI medications repetitively, and they don't need them, what is that doing to their body?
Right.
How
many times that I've had, like, flare-ups, and I didn't, I'm assuming that was it. Like, after I was diagnosed, that would be in, like, so much pain. And I'm like, well, I must have an infection somewhere. And, of course, it's like, okay, well, we'll give you this when the test results come back. And how many, I mean, I've been on like, I don't know how many rounds of antibiotics because, they just assume that I have a UTI. And really, I'm
Right.
just having a really awful flare.
So, for anyone who doesn't know about infections or bacteria levels or anything like that, um, every infection or bacteria is identified by a species, and if or a family of species, and a certain medication will treat any species of infections in that family. So, let's say there's family one, family two, family three. Okay, well, we'll use, there's 100 different antibiotics out there, but each antibiotic falls to fit one of those families or something in that family. Currently, we are missing whatever antibiotic kills whatever bacteria growth is left inside of our bladder. From the retention and not being able to empty it, it's kind of like the pee spoils and rots and then builds toxicities that create bacteria that creates infections that later spread, and these organisms go and do what they do, and then they become infectious diseases, or things that take over your body, invasive infections, as you would call those. And invasive infections travel, so that's why we say UTI, because even though the disease isn't in your urinary tract, it's in your bladder. Your urinary tract is attached, your kidneys are attached, that's why we say kidney infection, because these are invasive species. So there is something that will kill the invasive species, but what is it? That's what we need. We need an antibiotic to stop the burning and pain. And we have enough band-aids and everything else right now, but we are missing that band-aid, the whole box. Someone took it. Like, we need a box of band-aids just for us, a medication that's made just for us, and we need scientists to play with whatever is out there in these antibiotics to create one for us. Even if you take some of this and some of this and some of that to make a new pill, like, I would try that. Like, I'm ready to kill whatever is invasively taking over my organs with infections. I know a lot of us would. We've been guinea pigs for the last 10 years for you guys, so why not do it again? And I really feel like if we could kill that infection somehow, some way, that would be like the next step in elevating our treatment plans, perhaps. Um, Again, I'm not a doctor. I could be completely wrong, but I feel that that's right and that
Well,
that's what we need next.
I did read some of us. I mean, I don't know if it's all of us with IC have like it's not truly IC. It's like an embedded infection because the the tests that they use to determine that you have a UTI. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't test every species of bacteria out there. So I don't think
Well,
that's me.
what you
I mean,
mean
I'm
by
pretty
embedded infection is, I'll give you like a little science on that. So
uh
once a
huh.
species invades, so think about war. The only way to win a war is to overtake. Well, I've already invaded, or did it begin and broken in your house? You can't overtake me until you take me out. So it's war, baby girl. Who's gonna win this battle? You or me? Who's bringing enough people? You don't even know who to bring. You don't even got a cell phone. I'm ahead of time. I've got the phone and all. So it's kind of like you can't get rid of what we don't know. And once it's developed into a species, the only way to get rid of the species is to go in and kill it with an antibiotic. But we don't have that antidote. So we then develop a secondary issue of this anonymous infection. So it is a whole nother condition, yes. And it doesn't affect all IC patients. But at this point, for IC patients that are affected with that, if we don't extend the treatment plan then to an antibiotic that will get rid of that, how long after it invades the body do they win the war? And what do they win when they win the war?
Right. I mean, if you have an infection, I'm surprised for people to have an infection for years on end. But I mean, yeah, it's possible. I mean, you could basically get septic shock from it.
So, yep, that's what comes next. That's how I was going to kind of say. There's a
Yeah.
couple stages in between there. So what it does is it turns from this species to that species, which creates the kidneys and UTI infections that we discussed. So when those go untreated or are diagnosed because we're assuming they're IC related, so we're going to quit giving you the meds. And now it actually is that, because that was a ripple effect after for so long. Now those go untreated, and kidney infections have permanent damage that come with it, and other species that they turn into, kind of like how a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. All bacterias do that, and all invasive bacterias invade each organ. So how a bacteria works is based on its host. Well, the host was the bladder, so it was living this way, responding this way in the bladder. Once the bacteria located to the kidneys, it became from a bladder infection to a kidney infection, because those are different, like a little bit of a different species in a way. They're the same species, same bacteria, but they respond differently because of the host. So what they're eating is differently. And then when it goes to the urinary tract, it affects differently. So when you have multiple organs that are affected and not treated for those infections, more infections come now. And then we become septic, or a staph infection almost. And our organs shut down. And now we're looking at failure of organs, kidneys perhaps most of the time. And then now we're looking at, is it permanent failure, or is this reversible? Is there any permanent damage? Do I need dialysis? Do I need this? Do I need that? All from us turning an eye to the bacteria that we let continue to grow, and we did not take the medications because we assumed it was the IC. And it starts off as IC, where sometimes the bacteria is not anything that needs an antibiotic. But after so long, it adds up and eventually grows up, and then that bacteria needs an antibiotic now, because of the type of species. But at this point, once that happens, your body is like repetitively, next time you get that same infection like over and over and over, because your body already had that infection. So it's like easier to get it again and again each time, because it kind of like picks up where it left off each time it comes back. Like the house is packed, our bags are here, like it's like our vacation home. We're gonna come party it up. So each flare becomes worse and worse and worse now, because I have more and more and more friends I bring to the party. So it's really complicated to needless to say, really, because without killing the bacteria levels, and then we have people who have other diseases that now, those like me, kidney disease or gastroparesis, now all of my other issues are interfering with those issues, and it's just like a box of issues that are even harder to identify. But if you don't start to identify those and get those bacteria levels down, then you're looking at infectious diseases or kidney issues or a bigger issue. And that's kind of where you have two classes of people. One where they don't have that issue, which is kind of like you, where those bacteria levels just aren't something that's attacking you. And then you have another class of people where it's full throttly attacking. So both classes are at a point where they need a little extra help now, and all of the treatment plans that we have just aren't fully covering it. And I think that science will evolve, and the next generation hopefully will pick up where we left off.
I sure hope so.
I hope so too. Like, I really do. I pray for us. So you mentioned before you have good support, and it was your mom.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to her if she's listening?
Mom, I really can't thank you enough for, not just being supportive during me figuring out IC, but just being supportive in general. Like, I know plenty of moms would probably just be really frustrated with me. I've not been the easiest kid to deal with, but just thank you for always being there, always picking up when I can't, and I don't know, if I could be like a quarter of the woman that you are, I think I'd be happy.
Aww. That was really cute. I like that. That made me feel special too. Like, just hearing that, it's heartwarming.
Made all the moms happy.
Yeah. So if somebody was willing to give up because they've been told they're crazy, or the treatment plans aren't working, or they're not comfortable with the doctor, or they're scared of the pelvic floor issues, kind of what would you tell them to keep them pushing, keep the journey going?
Well, just whatever your drive is. Like I know some of us, we have goals in life, we have husbands, we have children, we have educational goals. That you can still reach your goals. You just might have to do it differently. Like this disease is part of your life, but it is not your entire life. And like we've been talking about, that something is wrong with you. If this doctor doesn't listen to you, then go to another doctor or get a referral or find a way to educate yourself, because unfortunately, that's just kind of what we have to do in order for people to take us seriously. And I mean, there is hope out there. I mean, there's probably treatments that I have no idea about. Maybe I'll try in the future or whatever. But I mean, there is a lot for us out there, and I know it's hard. I definitely would try to find your support system. I mean, what has really helped me and what I said I would never do is join support groups for people like us, but that definitely helps to talk to people who get it, because people who are, more normal, they try to explain it away, and they try to say, well, you need to do this or that, but they don't get that when you're in chronic pain, you're in chronic pain. It doesn't, you're not going to take like honey and turmeric or something and be better in an instant. It's a constant battle. So really getting that support system and just knowing that there's better out there for you.
I fully agree with that. Well, thank you for coming on. Sprinkle some love with a cause. It was a pleasure to have you today. I look forward to doing a follow-up with you and seeing how your journey is going. And definitely, I want everyone to keep on fighting. There is no cure, so don't stop. Education, like she said, is key. Definitely go and purchase those books if you're interested in those, or you feel like you're not educated enough. And I do find myself with this particular disease that everything that is uncomfortable or I said I would never do became the most beneficial for me and something I looked forward to doing. And my perspective changed on that, because when you're often pushed into a disease, your perspective on life and everything changes. So, be open to that change, and be open and willing to try those new things that don't seem like they will help, because they do. So with that being said, I hope to catch up with you soon. And until next time, everyone.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Bye.
Bye.